Good morning. I'm Gail Johnson-Vaughan, your worship associate for today and last week and the next week too. So great. One of my favorite parts about being worship associate is to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains here in Grass Valley, California. Maybe it's one of my favorites because I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, and welcoming is a very 2-ish thing. But the welcome I speak is not just from me alone. I serve as the voice of welcome to this experience, this place, this time, this community. Each of us are welcomers too, as you experience, as we all experienced just a few minutes ago as we greeted each other. Whether this is our first time here, or our 10th time here, or our 100th time here, or our 1,000th time here, because some of us have come that long, we are each welcome. This community says welcome in many ways. It says, make yourself at home. You may choose to be a guest, or you may choose to be family, but most of all, you may be yourself. Our welcome extends to each of us in all the ways we are different and all the ways we are similar. Together, we weave a rich tapestry of opportunity to enrich each other's lives. I watched and participated in the giving and receiving of that warm and energetic welcome. Yes, it feels good to be together. Now, getting back to being 2-ish, and those of you who haven't had the opportunity to experience our Enneagram services, you'll find out all about that. A big part of why I wanted to be worship associate this month is because our theme is the gifts of justice and equity, values that are etched deep in my soul. But also, close second, was because I knew that Reverend Kevin was going to explore the Enneagram type 2 today, and I'm a 2. That's very 2-ish. In my mind, the gifts of the Enneagram and justice and equity are deeply interwoven. Achieving justice and equity requires us to do the inner work as well as the work outside. I've found no better tool over the many decades that I have been using it. So welcome. It is good to be together.
People were naming what they valued. So often the sense of connection and community was at the heart of what people were naming. We feel it especially strongly often when life is hard for us, life is challenging, and others in that time see us and support us, affirm us, hold us, and sometimes serve as living examples for us of kindness, compassion, and love. So as we prepare to share the joys and the sorrows in our hearts and to honor those with our silent ritual this morning, I invite us to sing and therefore to breathe together in the process. So I'll invite you in a moment to rise in body or in spirit, to sing Shelley Jackson Denham's Words and Wisdom, and to feel out any of the ways those words might give a voice to your own life. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing together. for our prayer and our meditation this morning, I would offer what's known as the much-loved prayer of St. Francis, though St. Francis did not actually write it. It's more self-focused than a prayer by St. Francis would be. It appeared first in 1912 in French, and then was shared quite a bit during the World Wars, because I think in part because it's such an inclusive prayer for peace. And many of us know it through the 1967 musical version, right? Make me a channel of your peace. It was by a South African Franciscan, Sebastian Temple. So here's the translation from the original French, with just a few adaptations so that you can take it in and take on this prayer through the heart of your spirituality, if you choose. Through your understandings, your hopes, addressing it to God or Goddess or Spirit or love or life, or the center of your own heart, perhaps. In other words, to where you direct your deepest yearnings. Make me an instrument of peace. Make me an instrument of peace. Where there's hatred, let me bring love. Where there's offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Oh, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives. It is in self-forgetting that one finds. It is in forgiving that one is forgiven. It is in dying that one awakens to eternal life.
When I was in my late 20s, I was married, had 2 small children, and my cousin came to visit. We were doing the dishes together one day when I told her that I believed that if anyone, anywhere in the universe didn't like me, I would diffuse into the void and cease to exist. Welcome to the existential fear of the two. In my late 30s, I was introduced to the Enneagram. A friend invited me and my then husband to an Enneagram workshop, saying that I was a 3 and he was an 8, and those were the types that were least likely to come to a workshop. I went, he didn't. The teacher chose my home as the venue for the workshop. At the end of the session, he approached me and said that though he rarely typed another individual, he was really concerned that I thought I was a 3. I was, when I so obviously wasn't. And I was taken aback. I asked him why he thought so. And he said, well, just look at your home. Talk to me later about that. I'd been perfectly happy to accept my friend's typing of me, but now I needed to go back and do my own work. Well, maybe I was a 2 with a 3 wing. There were things about the 2 I could relate to, but some of the characteristics I just did not want to own. I could own being empathetic, sincere, warm-hearted, and yes, I was friendly and generous, and yes, I was helpful and nurturing and caring toward others, but the part about being manipulative and seductive and flattering and people-pleasing, really? And what about that string giver characteristic? You know, when someone offers help or a gift without making it clear that there's something expected in return. Beware, if there's a type you don't really want to be, look more closely. I did, and began a powerful journey of identifying and unraveling the survival strategies that had got me through my childhood, but were not useful, in fact, destructive as an adult. For instance, as a 2, I could instinctively intuit what another wants from me, and without conscious awareness, be it, morph into it. That can give you what you need for an ideal match for a year or 2, but after a while, the mask just gets too heavy, and the other person gets blamed for not allowing the 2 to be themselves. Ouch. Some of you know I have a colorful marital history. For me, the Enneagram has been an incredible growth tool. It lets me bring my disguised survival strategies into view, where I can bring them to choice. Bit by bit, over 50 years that I have worked with the Enneagram, I've uncovered more and more of my essence. Rather than manipulative, I've become strategic. Rather than seductive, I've become a gratitude-led team player that many enjoy working with on shared causes. Rather than being afraid of diffusing into the void, if anyone doesn't like me, much to my surprise, I became an advocate, successfully taking on the state of California's child welfare system. I had outspoken adversaries who didn't hesitate a moment to let me and others know how flawed they saw me to be. And I didn't diffuse. I'm here. 2 are known to be self-sacrificing. Some of the literature says that's a good thing, but any strength overused becomes a liability. I'm working hard now to care as much for myself as I care for others. The muscle that lets me say no is strong now. I can still say yes, but I do so after careful consideration of what I'm saying yes to. I take on tasks that keep me in balance, that feed me as well as draw my strength and energy. So, am I done growing? Far from it. My word of the year is pause, to give me time to respond, not react, when something might feel like a slight or withdrawal of love and respect. I'm good at loving and caring for others. Got that down. My bigger work is to love myself for who I truly am and to share that authentic self with other people, with you, even when I fear your response for me to be kindly and transparently honest. I am glad we're here together.
Gail, thank you. Thank you. Gail has shared in a wonderfully personal way a number of the elements of this aspect of our personality, in Enneagram terms known as our two-ness. One of 9 patterns we humans live out to make our way through the world. The 2 is sometimes known as the helper, the giver, the altruist, the lover. And for some people, this is the strongest part of their identity. But in all of us, at our healthiest, this is the part of us that is loving, empathetic, warm, thoughtful, appreciative, generous, and helpful, rooted in our very human desire to feel love and to be a source of love, both. It's a natural desire that, as Gail pointed out, gets redirected if the message that we got very early in life, the way we learned to get what we wanted from the inevitably imperfect people who cared for us, if the message was that we had to repress our own needs and attend to other people's needs, to lavish our attention on others so that we'll be liked or at least needed, if we take that on, that's how we'll know we're wanted, right? Then that becomes this drive in our lives, this fear. In order to survive and try to get what we needed to varying degrees for each of us, some of us a little, some of us a lot, this part of us starts to believe that we have to give in order to get, that we have to earn people's affections, that they won't simply give us their love on their own. Resonating with anybody? Yeah. The primary message this part of us starts to believe is that we're okay, we're good, as long as we're loved by others and we feel emotionally close to them. And danger if we're not. And so we do all kinds of things to try to make sure people will like us, to make sure people will need us, and make sure people will feel emotionally bonded to us, will be our special friend. And the challenge, of course, in this, as is true in all these aspects of our personality, is that instead of getting what we really want, what we really need, we end up trying to become someone else, something else, in order to get what turns out to be a lookalike substitute for what we want. A lookalike substitute for that unconditional love and connection that we really need. And so it becomes a trap. It's never really meeting our need, but it does temporarily soothe our fears. And so we try harder and harder to get it, but it never actually gives us what we need. It's never enough. Now, at our healthiest, we recognize this, we see it. But even at our best, some days are just better than others, depending how stressed we are, or our health, or our mood. So the wake-up call that our button's getting pushed in this way, that we're getting sucked into our insecurities about whether people have affection for us or not, is when we realize, oh, I'm doing a whole lot of people-pleasing. I'm looking really hard for what I have to say or do or not say or do to try to make people like me or feel good about me. The 3 in us we talked about a couple weeks ago wants people to perceive and think of us well. The 2 in us wants people to feel good about us and feel close to us. It's a pattern, as Gail noted, that can lead us to give too much, to exhaust ourselves trying too hard to meet too many people's needs, believing that we have to be superhuman and indispensable in order to be accepted. Worried that people won't feel close enough to us if we stop being so supportive and so generous. The so-called prayer of St. Francis suggests that it's a higher, better goal to want to love others than to want to be loved ourselves. But those two wants are so much more complexly and deeply interwoven than the prayer implies, whoever actually wrote it. The point in looking at all these Enneagram parts and pieces over the course of the year is just to help us learn to notice with ever more keen curiosity what's going on inside of us and what's going on through us, to notice what's true in us beneath all those messages and behaviors. And so, as Gail noted, more often to have a choice about how we act, not to be driven on automatic pilot by those unconscious impulses. And of course, the other point is to help us better understand each other and the people in our lives, and so let our compassion get wider and wider. So I know many of you have been working with the Enneagram for decades. What else would you like us to know about twos or two-ness? What else would you say about twos or two-ness? Anybody? Chameleon. A chameleon, right? Trying to be everything for everybody. Anything else you'd name about two-ness?
The impulse to rescue.
The impulse to rescue, yeah. Both to help and to be needed all at the same time, yeah. Gail spelled it out so nicely, all those aspects for us. So some purportedly famous twos: Mother Teresa, Maya Angelou, Desmond Tutu, Florence Nightingale, Samwise Gamgee, Stevie Wonder, Celine Dion, Spider-Man, Arsenio Hall, the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Ted Lasso, and Santa Claus. What do you think the country is that people suggest embodies two-ness? Any guesses? Sorry? Canada? Some say Italy, right? That warmth and food as love, but Sweden, friendly, welcoming, altruistic, and a little bit superior, gets to more of the complex layers of two. Yeah. So when it comes to pursuing justice and equity, our theme this month, we've learned over time that it's important to pay attention to that give in order to get motivation. And so when we want to do good and want to give to the wider world, to ask ourselves first, who's being served in the process and how? Is it mostly helping us feel better about ourselves, or is it truly serving others? To quote the Wizard of Oz, our UU tradition has long called us to be good deed doers, with a focus more on this world than the next, and our aspiration to honor the inherent worth and dignity in every person. Universalists and Unitarian Universalists have done a lot of good, but not without also doing harm often, unintended harm. Our historical tendency has been to do our good deeds from a rather paternalistic perch, with an unexamined and often unconscious assumption that we know best. In swooping in with our solutions and our benign and generous benevolence, we have not always noticed the gap between our intentions and our impact. How our swooping in fact, took away agency from other people. Now, the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee has addressed this head on. The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee originated in the Unitarian Service Committee in the 1940s, helping people escape Nazi persecution in Europe. Their logo, a chalice with a flame in it, gradually became the symbol for this entire tradition, which is why we light a flame in a chalice. The UUSC's mission is to advance human rights and social justice around the world, and that is a big mission. What I so appreciate about what they do and how they do it is that these days, when they identify suffering or a need that they want to address, they don't just swoop in with the answer, to take over. They look to create what they call eye-to-eye partnerships with local grassroots groups that are already helping usually marginalized communities to determine their own steps for the future. So the UUSC looks around to say, who's already doing helpful work for themselves, and then to come in and ask, how can we help? When I took part in the UUSC effort in Haiti as a seminarian after the 2010 earthquake, I and other seminarians, we moved rocks. That's what we did for the local people who were doing the more skillful work of building a village for the people displaced by the earthquake. That's what was helpful, moving rocks. This is a commitment that this congregation's Nisanan Task Force took on right from the very beginning, to be in right relationship and an eye-to-eye relationship with the Nisanan, the indigenous people of this area. Not to come in as saviors with the answers or as extractors of the culture for our sake, but as people wanting on your behalf to be of service to their well-being in the ways they wanted us to be of service to their well-being, in the ways we could actually be of service to their well-being. And to do it with no strings attached. Right? So Shelley, the tribe's spokesperson, has shared with me numerous times how important this aspect has been to the tribe and how incredibly rare. This is this congregation seeking to live into its healthiest giving, its healthiest helping, its healthiest two-ness. The virtue of type 2 in Enneagram speak, in Enneagram teachings, the virtue, the quality that helps us live our search for love healthily, the quality that this congregation seeks in eye-to-eye relationships with all its justice partners, ideally, is humility, which, contrary to what you might expect, is not about devaluing ourselves, but just the opposite. At the personal level, humility is about no longer needing to be superhuman to have value, no longer needing to be the savior. Humility is about not needing to meet everyone's needs or to please others to be okay with ourselves. Humility means not needing to make ourselves any more important or less important than we are. Humility is what can allow us to give generously without expectation of reward or strings attached. Allow us to be okay with the fact that not everyone will like us, darn it. Allow us to know, and maybe even to be happy, that we can't control how people see us or feel about us. Allow us to ask for help and be open to receiving it. Allow us to be honest with ourselves about our needs and our feelings and our limitations. Wait a minute, I need to take some notes here. Having humility, a helpful goal for this two-ness in us, means having a genuine sense of exactly who we are and who we are not. And as Beatrice Chestnut puts it, feeling then joy, peace, satisfaction, and freedom. Perhaps most of all, freedom in being our most authentic self. In other words, the journey at hand, to be loved as to love, is the journey, first of all, to love ourselves, as Gail named. To love ourselves, for some of us, the most difficult and the most liberating journey of all. The journey that allows us to be most genuinely healthy and loving of others then. So good thing we have each other to practice with, to learn from, to be inspired by, to be provoked by, to be reassured by, to be loved by, and to love. This is our training ground, week by week, year by year, meeting by meeting by meeting by meeting, conversation by conversation, and moment by moment, including this one and the one right after. so may we be. Drawing on the wisdom of the Reverend Gretchen Haley again. In a world that feeds on moral outrage, may we here together cultivate our moral courage. In a time that prioritizes picking sides, may we here together draw a wider circle. And in a culture that teaches us to get for what we give and to ask, what's in it for me? May we here practice generosity and remember we are all in this together. And so that we don't forget, each week we remind each other with these good words to each other. Let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.